It is good to be with you in the auditorium. I've missed being here. This place holds a lot of special memories for me and my family, so it's always a treat to be here with you. I'll actually be here with you again next week because Clayton asked me to make a couple of announcements, and I'm just going to prime it because one of them involves children's ministry, and children's ministry. So I'm up here and you're there, so you have to listen to me. So if you're curious about, if you have a kid, birth through fifth grade, and you're curious what summer looks like, I have these cards on the black table by Sue. Hey, Sue, can you give a wave? There's Sue. Right by Sue, there's cards that tells you everything about if your kid is this age, this is what is available for them for the summer. So I'm just going to say that again next week when I'm here for everybody else who's not here. So it's been a very interesting week. The month of May was very full, and I felt like my attention was just pulled in so many ways. So I've been very thankful that this week has been pretty open for me to just kind of be open-handed and say, Lord, what do you have for me to give? Would you help me focus my thoughts? Would they be organized? Would you guys understand what I'm trying to say? And would there be something that I have that you need? So I'm the kind of person where I just kind of start by talking, and then I kind of just keep talking until I hone it in. So I came in here on Wednesday with a couple notes, and I just did a sermon to nobody, and it was great. And I said, Wednesday I'm going to take the day off because I was in denial that everything was great and that I didn't have to do any more work. And then I came in on Friday, and it was awful. And then I came in on Saturday, and it was pretty good. So we'll see which one you guys get today. I actually heard Andrew Schmidt. You guys remember Andrew Schmidt? So he's at Celebrate. When we all got together for a Sending Network event, he said he likes to, his sermon is always, he comes up with like 3 ideas, and then each Sunday he doesn't know which way it's going to go. And I was like, that's kind of how I feel. So I do not have slides, but I respect those of you who take notes. So I'm going to give you a couple things right now. So if you're a note taker, here we go. So first of all, the passage, because it's always good to know what I was talking about when you look back on it. It's the last 5 verses of chapter 21. So John 21, 20 through 25. That's the passage today. My sermon in a sentence, because I am a pupil of Kevin Corver, so that's how I also do things, is keep your eyes on the prize. Keep your eyes on the prize. And then also write standing stones. If I can make sure that the passage, the sermon in a sentence, and standing stones are clearly communicated from me to you, it was a good day. All right, well, let's start by reading the passage. So if you could, turn with me to John 21. In the church Bible, it's page 1076. John 21, the last 5 verses. Oh, and that was another thing. So originally, when I look at the spreadsheet, like this is the room, this is the passage, this is the teacher, and originally it was just John 20 through 23. And when you hear it, you might understand how I felt. How am I supposed to get a full sermon out of this? Like I could maybe do like right before we go out on the football field, like a 5-minute Devo with this. But I didn't feel at first that I had anything to add to this. But then, as per the usual, I meet with Darren, I meet with Kevin, and I get a little bit of hoorah, and then they give me some ideas, and then I'm like, okay, I like that, I can do that. So let's read the passage, and then I have a couple thoughts, and then we're going to talk about keeping our eyes on the prize. So John 21, starting at verse 20. Oh, sorry, ADD. We also, Kathy did a great job last week. I'm not going to spend too much time tying what she said into what I'm saying. You should definitely go and watch it or listen to it on podcast. But we had just that was the passage right before this was where Jesus asked Peter 3 times, "Do you love me? Okay, then feed my lambs." Okay, so that's where we are. Starting at verse 20. Peter turned and saw that the disciple whom Jesus loved was following them. That's John, by the way. This was the one who had leaned back against Jesus at the supper and had said, "Lord, who is going to betray you?" When Peter saw him, he asked, "Lord, what about him?" Jesus answered, if I want him to remain alive until I return, what is that to you? You must follow me." Because of this, the rumor spread among the brothers that this disciple would not die. But Jesus did not say that he would not die. He only said, "If I want him to remain alive until I return, what is that to you?" This is the disciple who testifies to these things and who wrote them down. We know that his testimony is true. Jesus did many other things as well. If every one of them were written down, I suppose that even the whole world would not have room for the books that would be written. People of God, this is the word of God. So, let's go in order. So let's start at verse 20 and verse 21. I think it's interesting how John talked about himself. One of the commentaries I read said that he thinks that John identified himself intimately with both Jesus and with Peter so that people would believe that he was there, that he understood what was going on. Then it also said a second reason may be that his description also reminds the reader of John's intimacy with Peter. This helps to understand Peter's question about Jesus' will for John, because Peter evidently wanted to know what would happen to his young friend since he himself was going to suffer crucifixion. And then in verse 22, Jesus essentially told Peter that John's future was none of his business. I think we all need to hear that every once in a while. I don't know about you, but sometimes I like to stick my nose where it doesn't belong. Rather than concerning himself with God's will for other people, even those closest to him, Peter should concentrate on following Jesus himself. I thought this was interesting, because I don't know Hebrew or Greek, so I don't understand a lot of the words that I'm reading, so I need other smart people to help me understand. So when he says, what is that to you, and you must follow me, it says that the you there is emphatic. Even if it was Jesus' will for John to remain alive until he returned, this was not Peter's concern. And then I think it's interesting, I'm sure we've all seen in the news during our lifetime where a group of people said, we know that this is when the earth is going to come to an end. We know that Jesus is going to return. This is the origin story of that. This is where people started to wonder, when is Jesus going to come back? So I think that was interesting. And then finally, the last 2 verses, I think it's really interesting how it ends. So 20, 21, 22, 23 are all kind of finishing off, like what Kathy read last year. That's kind of all in one. And then the last 2, this is the disciple who testifies to these things and who wrote them down. We know that his testimony is true. And then Jesus did many other things as well. If every one of them were written down, I suppose that even the whole world would not have room for the books that would be written. That's it seems like just an awesome PS that we don't see in a lot of other gospels. And then I like this quote, and then we're gonna talk about keeping our eye on the prize. My friend, there are a lot of things that you won't know. There are many things that you don't need to know. There are things that are not your business to know. The important thing is to follow him. So keeping our eye on the prize. Verse 22, where Peter really wants to know is, wait, hold on, did you just say John is going to live forever? Can we stop? Can we talk about this for a while? Friendly reminder, this is the risen Jesus that is right there. So Peter's taking his eyes off the prize and focusing on something that is not his concern at all. Now, we can do this in many ways. We can do this in good ways. We can do this in bad ways. Obviously, it's not like Peter forgot that he loved Jesus or he forgot who his Savior was. But when you do that once, it's okay. And then twice, and then 3 times, and then 4 times before you know it, you maybe even forget what the prize is. One of the things, there are so many things that we could talk about. One of the things I want to stress today is I believe in my core that when we forget the good things that God has done for us, it takes our eyes off the prize. And inversely, if we remember the things that God has done for us, it will keep our eyes on the prize. So, example from my own life that I'm not proud of, but I'm using you all for accountability so that moving forward, this won't happen again. The biggest miracle in my life, bar none, I thank God for 20 times. Happened 5 years ago. The biggest miracle in my life, I don't even have it in my calendar as a recurring thing to be reminded of to thank God for. Emily and I did not think that we were going to have kids. So we went to Bethany, and we're like, all right, we want kids, so let's look into adoption. By the way, when we got there, like the first thing they said is, just so you know, 30% of people will get pregnant when they start this process. I was like, can we talk about how much money this is going to cost us or any of those other things I'm very confused about? And they're just like, no, you're going to have a baby. Just so you know, you're going to have a baby. I was like, they've said that a lot. And 1 month later, Emily was pregnant. So they were spot on. Great news. I remember I was at a football camp, and Emily called me and she said, I think I'm pregnant. I said, no, you're not, because we went through this. The answer is always no. It's always false something. And then, so I'm driving home like, oh my gosh, is she pregnant? And then, I got home and she was. And then we went on a mission trip for 5 days to Chicago with a bunch of 8th graders. And the whole time, I was just obviously beside myself with joy. And every time that we sang a song about, like good father, I'm like, I'm going to be a father. And everyone's like, why is Brett crying so much this week? I was very emotional. Jenny was there. Jenny was one of the first people to find out that we were pregnant. Anyway, so that's great. But then all of a sudden, things didn't look great. Emily had some things that she said, something's not right here. So she went in to the hospital to get tested. And then, and forgive me, Emily, my wife, my data and my dates are probably going to be off. But so she went in, found out, or they called and said, hey, the results that we got, your numbers are so low that we think, in so many words, we think it's a miscarriage. So we need you to come in. We're going to run more numbers, but you're probably not going to hear her heartbeat on the ultrasound. And so, as I'm wherever I am in Pella, driving to the hospital to be with Emily, to go to what I think is going to be the worst news of my life, I find out afterwards that there are 2 doctor friends that are praying and interceding for us. And we get there and we're in the ultrasound room and the goop goes on Emily's belly and they start moving around. And the text says, oh, there's a heartbeat. Oh, there's a baby in there. The people that prayed for us, that interceded for us, saved our baby. You can't convince me otherwise. That was the best day of my life. And I've probably thanked God for it 20 or 30 times. And I'm so ashamed, but in a way that is going to bring accountability, not like I'm ashamed and I'm just going to be over here in the corner. And I think that, among with many other things in my life that I have not remembered to thank God for, it has led me to taking my eyes off the prize, or it's led me to be, it's easier for me to take my eyes off the prize. I think one of the benefits of the way that my brain works, one of the benefits to whatever I have, ADD, ADHD, whatever, is I'm quick to move on. If I make a mistake, I don't stay there. I'm like, all right, let's go. Let's try again. But one of the downsides of it, I believe, is that I also forget really quickly and I move on very quickly. So when I mentioned at the beginning that you people that take notes I think you're the best among us, because I think you are in a position where you have the like, you take notes, you can look back at them, and then I think that you do keep your eye on the prize. You remind yourself of what God has done in your life, and you're more able to be thankful and to recognize his goodness in your heart. So I'm going to call those standing stones. Similar to when the Israelites crossed the Jordan River and then they built that pile of stones. You can call it an altar. We're just going to call it standing stones because they wanted to remember what God had done. They wanted to mark that place and that time. I would encourage all of us to do the same thing. In fact, let's just do it right now. Can I have like a little like non-lyrical piano, the normal church music stuff? I'm going to challenge you guys for 2 minutes to think through, from little things to your baby gets saved things and everywhere in between. 2 minutes, I want you to think, what are the standing stones in my life? What are the ways that I have maybe gotten my eye off the prize? You know what? No, let's just do standing stones. We'll do the prize thing later. Just standing stones. 2 minutes. I want you to think through your whole life. And I want you to, if you can, write it down. If you can't, throw it on a note on your phone. Or even if you're like me, maybe you need to remember the date and take 15 seconds to set it as a calendar reminder so that every year when it comes up, that's literally the least you can do. But I think it's actually pretty helpful to keep you accountable. So 2 minutes, let's play some music. Think about the standing stones in your life. Ready, go. Thanks for doing that. I see a lot of people still with their heads bowed and scribbling away and on their phones, so sorry to interrupt that, and I hope that it continues. And while we're in that was part 1 of 3 of the action steps for today. So part 2, my challenge to you is, before you leave this building, share with somebody probably in this room, right? Then you don't have to start by saying, hey, I want to tell you something I just learned in the auditorium today. Share one of those standing stone moments with somebody. And then part 3, I'm going to send out an email to any of you that are on the auditorium attenders list. And by the way, there's a QR code in the back if you want to be a part of the auditorium more regularly and hear what's going on with the community here. And I want to hear from you if you want to share. And then you can just say, hey, this is just for you, Brett, or hey, you can use this. And then, various levels of anonymity if you want to put your name, all that stuff. So I would love to hear from you. So there's the 3 parts: the personal reflection right now, the sharing with someone else before you leave today, and then the third one is responding to the email that I'm going to send out after the service. I was thinking about, I'm very easily convicted. Almost every sermon, almost every worship time, there is something that cuts me to my core. And, okay, so I'm 37. Let's do some math. Let's just say I'm 38, because then I can say 20. So when I was 18 is when I started making the decision that I'm going to go to church, right? It's not just my parents making me come. I'm going to decide to go. And let's say, so for 20 years, I went to 40 church services, or 40 sermons I heard, just on average, travel and all that other reasons why I wouldn't do 52. So that's 800. I've been to 800 church services in the last 20 years. How many times do you think that I have taken those cutting to my core, convicting things, action steps, and did anything meaningful with them? 40? Once a year? Once a month? The number could range. I feel that there are things, we always have such good, the teachers at Third are awesome, the worship is awesome, and then at no fault to the teacher or to the worship leaders, as soon as we leave this church, as soon as we leave the doors, we have a phone, we have commitments, we have obligations, and maybe the thing that convicted us that day, it just... So I think the people that take notes, the people that journal, the people that are reflective have a leg up on the rest of us that just go about our day from here into life. And there's some things that we can change about that. There's a lot of things that we can't. So I'm in no way giving you a prescription as to what to do about that. But I know that for me, the first step that I'm going to take is I'm going to write down those standing stone moments in my life. I'm going to try my best to remember them and to have a yearly going back over my list, maybe even monthly. But I'm going to set up a very attainable hoop for me to jump through at first. So just going to say at the end of 2024, I'm going to go back and I'm going to see where God has been good. And I believe that that is going to be a huge step in me keeping my eyes on the prize. Something else I want to do before we go. I want to get some ideas from you, because I think that the things that take our eyes off the prize, we don't even necessarily know are doing that to us. That was a terrible grammatical sentence. The list of things that can take our eyes off the prize, I don't know that we even know that it's happening to us. So I have a request. Not everybody loves audience participation, but again, I'm up here and you're up there, and I'm making you participate if you want to. Think about things, how do I want to word this? I have it in my notes as spiritual battles, but I don't know if that's the right phrase. What are the things that take our eyes off the prize? And you don't have to yell out anything that's related to you personally. We're all just going to assume that this is just a generic list. So what are things that keep us from worshiping and thanking God on a daily basis that's in central Iowa that we all live? Anybody throw out some ideas so we can all grow as a body? Busyness. Disappointments. Control. Fear. Information overload, for sure. Keeping up with the Joneses. Being tired. Pride, anxiety. Sports. That's probably number 2 on my list. Technology, all the other things that we've heard over the years. And as I said before, some of them are good by themselves. But I think what we do is we take a good thing and we turn it into, similar to Peter with John. He's like, well, hold on. He's going to live forever. And then all of a sudden this rumor spread, and it was the biggest deal among everybody in that area. And then Jesus said to them, what's important to you is for you to follow me. And so I'm taking that as the things that are on the list that we just said there's so many things that make it so that my eyes are off the prize. So again, what I would suggest to you, there are many ways that we can push against the things that take our eyes off the prize. I would suggest that the one thing that I know has helped me is to be grateful and to remind myself what God has done. Every one of you is different. You're wired different. You probably don't like worship music at the same level that I do. The way that you connect with Jesus might not be in a quiet car ride like I do, or walking around the property of Third Church. It's going to be different for you. Some of you, the idea of getting a journal and having, by the way, quiet time for me is the most hardest thing in the world. It is very hard for me to quiet my mind, to hear the still small voice of my Savior. And then I try to do it in other ways to leveling degrees of success. But I want to challenge myself to at least start to journal so that I can see where I've been. I can see prayer requests and see if and when they are answered. See what my heart was like in 2024, at the end of 2024, and then year after year after year. That's my challenge to myself. And I'm just using that, I'm using all of you as accountability, which is what seems to happen with most of my sermons. So thank you, sermon team that makes me come up here once every 6 months. So what are the standing stones in your life? How are you going to thank God for what he did? And then how can you be aware of the things that take your eyes off the prize and rid yourself of them? I know it's very easy at Lent to give something up, like I'm going to get off social media during Lent. I'm going to XYZ. So I guess I'm challenging you to do a similar thing. Is there something in your life that needs to go that is keeping your eyes off the prize? Worship team, you can come on up. So one of the greatest days of my life, I thank God for just a few days, and then I forgot. TK is actually in the room with us, or he's outside playing. He was in the room with us. The fact that I have two beautiful children it does bring me to tears almost all the time when I think about it, when I think about what God has done for me, and when I think about the closer I am to Jesus, the better husband, the better father, the better coworker I will be. And the opposite is true. The further away I am from Jesus, the more susceptible I am to temptation, to being irritable and not being kind to the people around me. And I feel like what I'm saying is so I am oversimplifying it. But I truly believe once I read verse 22, and Jesus said to Peter, "What is it to you? You are to follow me." It just hit me like right between the eyes that I can do so many things on the peripheral, so many things that I think are good. Reading a book by Pete Greig. By the way, I highly suggest you read all of Pete Greig's books. Or God Has a Name by John Mark Comer, also a book I've been reading a lot. But then I think, okay, so I just read that book this week, and I read 5 passages. 1 passage a day for devotional. That's all I did. And so my encouragement to you is not like only read the Bible and nothing else. Don't hear that. But there are good things that can take away your time and your energy, and then you might not remember what it's like to hear God's voice when he speaks to us. So think about your standing stones. Think about the ways that you can thank the Lord for what he's done, and keep your eyes on the prize. And you know what that means for you, knowing the things that are out there to detract you, the way that you are built, the way that you have stumbled in the past. Only you can name what those are. My challenge is be aware of what they are, know when they are creeping up on you, and keep your eyes on the prize. Let's follow Jesus together, and let's worship together.